Othering Podcast explores the world of marginalized communities with a focus on the disabled and LGBTQ+. In our discussions, we will provide a platform for our guests to advocate and share their stories. By delving deep into their difficulties and successes, we will explore the changes necessary to improve lives everywhere. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to the Othering Podcast with Mike and Dory.
PEP Radio, part of the Pennsylvania Equality Project, advocates for the rights of LGBTQ plus people, the disabled, and marginalized communities. We play music from all 7 continents from 1928 through 2025 in English, Spanish, German, African tribal languages, Korean, and Japanese. We also offer news, history lessons, and are proud to include the Othering Podcast in our programming lineup. Tune in on the Live 365 app, Roku, and Alexa every Saturday and Sunday at 4 p.m.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you today?
I am tired.
Yep. All right, today we are talking to David Moore. He is the founder of the Pennsylvania Equality Project and co-creator of PEP Radio. David was diagnosed with asthma in 1993, thyroid cancer in 2008, and recurred in 2010, and common variable immune deficiency in 2017. Later developing an allergy to red meat, David came out as gay in 1985 while attending college, where he also worked on campus radio and on the founding of Marriage Equality for Pennsylvania, which later changed their name to Pennsylvania Equality Project, to focus on discrimination, rights, and more. David currently lives with his wife Jennifer in Pennsylvania, and he has been a wonderful partner to our podcast and a great friend of ours.
Yes.
Welcome, David. It's great
Yes,
to finally
welcome.
meet you outside of
Well,
email.
thank you. It's good to have this conversation.
It is, and there's so many conversations to be had, and I feel honored that I get to share it with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what's on your mind today?
So,
I want to start, if you
okay,
don't mind.
go ahead.
I know that you go to a lot of the events in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, for listeners, our capital, and you go to a lot of the LGBTQ events, and you help speaking and rallying out there. Can you kind of talk about how you got started doing that, and just kind of how that goes and how you feel about all that? Because we need people that do that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So back in 2011, I was sitting in the basement watching television late at night, and I saw the New York legislature was about to pass marriage equality for New Yorkers. And I thought, well, if New Yorkers can have that, we can too. There's no reason the LGBTQ community can't have the same marriage rights that our friends in New York have. Mm-hmm. So I decided to start a Facebook group called Gay Marriage for Pennsylvania. And by November of 2011, several commenters in the group suggested you really need to change the name because there are other genders that would like to get married as well. They're not necessarily gay. Okay, so there are lesbians, there are pansexuals, there are, and on and on and on. And I thought, you're absolutely right. And so I did a little bit of research on Facebook to see what names were popping up in other states. And marriage equality 4 seemed to be a common thread through most of them. So we decided to change the name to Marriage Equality for Pennsylvania. And by January of 2012, I met a man by the name of Josh Cesny. And Josh and I were just sitting at a bar one night. We were having some drinks, and we were talking about all this. And he made it abundantly clear how straight he is. He's like, but I dig what you're saying. I believe you should have marriage rights. I want to make sure that my friends who are gay or bisexual or lesbian have the same rights that I do. Mm-hmm. I said, okay, well, do you want to join our cause? And he said, not only do I want to join, I want to help really fight this. So by June of 2012, we started attending Pride events together. And then by December of 2012, not only had we built a page on Facebook, not just a group, but a page, we had exceeded 2,000 followers by that point.
Wow.
Nice.
Awesome.
And he just kept pushing and pushing and pushing to build the group. in December of 2012, we said, okay, what are we going to do in 2013 to really get our name out there? And he's like, we got to go where the people are. We've got to start holding rallies and marches. And so we held a rally at the Capitol in 2013 on the Capitol steps. And that by far is one of the most memorable events of my life, because we had about 100 people attend. And one of them was Ted Martin from Equality, Pennsylvania. And he was there. Jason Landau Goodman from Pennsylvania Youth Congress. It hadn't formed yet, but he was there. And the man that would eventually become the Department of Environmental Protection Secretary in Pennsylvania, John Hanger, was there.
Wow.
And we were all gathered on the Capitol steps. And this massive, bulky, just strong man in business attire, suit and tie, came running down the steps of the Capitol to see what was going on and find out who was running everything. And I thought, oh crap, here it comes. He goes up to Ted, they shake hands, they start talking, and Ted says, well, we're not running this event. I think it's that guy over there pointing at me. And I came walking over to them, and he said, hi, I'm Brian Sims. I'm the state representative from Philadelphia.
Wow.
Wow.
And a few minutes later, a bus pulled up right in front of the Capitol, and a bunch of people started getting out. And this one black man in dreads, and again, he looked pretty spiffy. He was well dressed.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted to know who was in charge. And he came over and shook my hand, and we started talking. And that turned out to be Malcolm Kenyatta, who's also now a state rep in Philadelphia.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah. And so we held our event. We all gave our speeches and marched across the front door of the Capitol. And there were, like I said, there were about 100 of us. That was the kickoff to a season that included rallies in Scranton, where we had a ska festival and ska musicians performed.
Mm-hmm.
We held events in Philadelphia. We marched at, I think it's called Washington Square.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I've heard of that.
Okay. So at Washington Square, we had other state representatives there. We had a crowd of about maybe 50 or 60. We didn't do a whole lot of promotion for this event, but about 50, 60 people showed up. And as we're getting into the speeches, and as I'm about to hand the Equality Award from our organization to Brian Sims, who was there, we heard elephants shrieking from the distance. And we're like, what are these? Was that an elephant? And then we heard it over and over again. We're like, who's playing this elephant sound for us to hear? Well, that turned out to be a parade for it was a religious festival parade. I believe it was for the Buddhists in the area. But they came marching down the street, dancing and singing. There must have been over 1,000 people in this parade. And we're like, well, we're not going to fight elephants today. We're simply going to go join them. And we marched in the parade and carried on and danced and had a really good time. And everybody got excited about it. And as the parade was just wrapping up and passing us, we're like, okay, we got to get back to what we were doing. And some of the people from the parade left the parade and joined us just to hear the speakers.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah, that was a fun event. So that's how it all got started.
That is so awesome.
Yeah.
I really love that. Wow.
And to just get out there and do it. I mean,
Yes.
that takes courage, and that's great. We need more people that can do that.
Yeah, because sometimes, a lot of things get really daunting and scary, and you feel like, and this is a conversation I've had with Mike before, where you feel like it's just you alone feel like you can't do anything or you'll never make a change. And all it takes is one person to say enough's enough. And, to find other people who are willing to follow and, fight along with them to say enough's enough too. And, but it only takes that one thought to kind of just explode.
Well, over the years, the group continued to grow. We hit about the 10,000 mark in 2014. So we had 10,000 followers, and not all of them were from Pennsylvania. We were beginning to get people from other states, from other countries, and it was just a sign that the work we were doing needed to be done.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
And by the end of 2013, we had held 13 rallies across Pennsylvania, in Erie and Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, and all the rest. Another key event that happened in I believe it was 2014. We held a rally in Pittsburgh, and the topic then was marriage equality, but we also brought up the issue of conversion therapy, and that has always been a sore point for me.
Yes.
Conversion therapy is not something that anyone should be subjected to.
It's pseudoscience. It's not based in any sort of reality of any sort, and all it does is just cause irreparable harm.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And someone at this event that we held agreed with that very point, and he spoke to that. And that man's name was Senator John Fetterman. Now, at the time, John Fetterman was the mayor of Braddock. He hadn't run for Senate yet. But we had the opportunity to share the 2014 Equality Award with him. And at the time, he was a very ardent supporter of LGBTQ plus rights and assuring that our community would be protected, at least in his domain in Braddock. What was really cool about it was in 2013, 2014, before the court ruling came down in Pennsylvania, married couples that wanted to get married would go to Bruce Haynes out in Montgomery County. Bruce Haynes was the clerk of the Orphans Court, and he took care of all the marriage license registrations. And so he was issuing marriage licenses to same-sex partners who would then travel to Braddock to meet up with Mayor Fetterman, and he would wed them. Then they would go back and get their marriage certificate in Montgomery County, and that became part of the basis for the court case that eventually led to marriage equality coming to Pennsylvania before the Obergefell decision.
And I'm amazed and in awe of all that you've done to help that. And I thank you greatly, because it doesn't make sense to me why you want to stop somebody from getting married. If people love each other, why does it matter? And I'm going to keep saying this until the day I die. It does not affect your marriage in any way, shape, or form if some other people who love each other get married. Whether it's an interracial or a gay marriage, a lesbian marriage, two pansexuals getting married, it doesn't affect yours. And if it does, there was something wrong with your marriage in the first place, not ours.
Exactly. And I have to say, there are other married gay couples living in Meadville. They've not impacted my marriage at all. No.
It hasn't impacted mine. It hasn't made me want to divorce Mike all of a sudden. My children...
is still great.
Yeah, it's actually even better now. And, our children are happy and being productive citizens of the United States, such as that is. And, they're thriving. They're not miserable. And nobody else is depressed or anything about these people getting married. I don't understand.
Well, as long as what happens in other people's homes is consensual and it is between two loving people, I don't see what the big problem is. And
Neither do
Exactly.
it's none of my business, really.
Right.
And it shouldn't be anyone else's either, unless, again, it's not consensual, in which case then there are problems. And but that's for a different day.
Yep.
Exactly. As long as it's two consenting adults, and they have to be adults. It's not an adult with a child. It's not two children. And it's not to say that children can't figure things out on their own. They can. It's just better between adults. As long as it's that, it doesn't bother me. It bothers me when it's an adult with a child, because that child has no voice. Then I'm going to be a voice. then I think that we should step in and, change the things. If it's an abusive relationship, that's when we should step in and help change things.
Right.
But if it's loving and they're obviously madly in love with each other and they're not harming anybody, who cares?
Exactly. And to that end, I decided in 2016 to find a way that I could begin to officiate weddings and to be able to help couples get married. I figured I've done all this work to get marriage equality. I'd like to be part of the process for couples getting married. So I went through the Universal Life Church, which is located out in Monterey, California, and decided that what they say, what their beliefs are, fit my personal beliefs. They fit my personal faith values. And so I went ahead and went through the steps to become an ordained minister in the Universal Life Church, which means I can legally marry couples. And I have to say, there were a couple of weddings that really impressed me. One, a local couple here in Meadville wanted to get married, and they asked me to be their officiant. And I agreed. And so they went to a neighborhood park and stood down by a stream. It was a gorgeous day. The wedding went off without a hitch. It took all of about a half an hour to get everybody where they needed to be and so forth. The ceremony went off without a hitch. They loved it. And I still keep in touch with them to this day. I still run into them here in town. And it's great to see that they're thriving together.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And they have children.
Awesome. Even awesomer.
They're amazing women. And I appreciate all that they do for our community. The other marriage that shocked me is my son came to me and said, "Dad, would you wed me to my husband, Alex, my soon-to-be husband?" And so they made all the arrangements up in New York because my son was a student at SUNY Fredonia at the time. And I said, "Sure, I'll do it." So we traveled up to New York and we met them at their place on campus where they were living. And from there, we walked over to one of the main fields in between all of the classroom buildings and administrative buildings. And I was rather shocked. I'm like, there's only about 5 people here. Where's the rest of your guests? Did something happen? They came walking up a hill singing because they were all part of the music department. And
Wow.
in a cappella, they sang the opening hymn for the wedding. And
wow.
I was blown away by this.
Wow.
It was
Wow.
so amazing. So amazing.
See, and that right there is a prime example of how do you look at that and say, ew?
Yeah.
How do you look at that and say, that's not for you? That's only for a man and a woman. And that just boggles my mind because that is a gorgeous story. I don't tear up. Well, I have a lot lately since talking, but but I don't usually tear up at wedding stories of any sort. And that teared me up because I could just hear at how much they loved each other. And I just don't get that. You can't honestly tell me to my face, looking and reading those stories of people loving each other and saying, "Oh no, that's terrible."
Right, exactly. And my son is still married. They're still living in Fredonia. My son had been a music major on campus. He completed his master's. So if anybody's looking
Go
for
you.
a tuba player,
Nice.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a hard.
thing. If anybody needs a tuba player for
There you go.
their performances, I'll get you his number.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a hard subject too. Being a music major of any sort, more kudos to him. Congratulations on that.
I have a question for you since we're on this topic. You came out as gay in 1985.
Yes.
And today, correct me if I'm wrong, you're married to a female. If you don't mind, as far as you're comfortable talking about it, can you kind of explain how that worked out and how that works today?
Right. So back in 1985, I was the second oldest son, a Roman Catholic deacon, and a very devoutly Catholic religious mom.
All right, that's enough.
And
We can end the podcast right here. You've
And
explained
on top
enough.
of all that, I went to an all-boys Catholic high school. So coming out of the closet was an incredibly painful experience.
Yes.
I spent days upon days crying, wondering if am I making a big mistake? Am I going to get through this? I don't have anybody to talk to about the way I feel, except for one person, Dan, and I won't mention his last name, but Dan
That's
and
fine.
I were very close friends. And when I say very close, I mean we had plenty of intimate moments while we were in high school.
Mhm.
And it was all part of both of us exploring who we are as people. And by the time I got to college, through a lot of peer pressure and a lot of curiosity on my part, I decided to try dating a woman again.
Right.
I did back in high school. It ended very badly. But in college, I thought I'm going to try it again. I'm getting a lot of pressure from my parents, from my grandparents. They want to have me to have children of my own. They want me to have the same type of family setting they had when I was a child.
Mhm.
And under all that pressure and under all of the messaging I was getting through the classes I had to take at the University of Dayton, where I was studying, I decided to see what happens and give it a shot in my senior year of college.
Mhm.
So I walked into the campus radio station one afternoon after class and propped my feet up on my desk. And this girl came in who turned out to be Jennifer. And she just sat down, didn't introduce herself, didn't say anything. She sat down. And I looked over at her and I said, "Who the hell are you? And do you want a job? Do you want to work for the station? Because you'd fit in great." And she's like, me? No, I don't need a job. I'm just waiting here for a friend." And I said, "Well, who's your friend?" And she said, "Tina." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, she works here." And Jen said, "Yeah, I know. We're gonna go have lunch together." And then Tina came walking in and we talked for a little bit and we had introductions and the two of them left for lunch. And I didn't learn until later, but Tina heard from Jen, that is the last guy on earth I would ever date.
That's usually how it goes.
Right? It is. And so Tina was very hesitant to give me Jen's number because I thought, okay, this is the one I'm going to try to see if I can appease my parents and keep the family at peace.
Mhm.
And Tina said she wouldn't give me Jen's number, but she gave my number to her and said if she wants to call you, she'll get a hold of you. Later that evening, she did. And we agreed to meet for lunch at the same place the two of them had lunch, the school cafeteria. And Jen and I had our first quasi date together. We talked for hours that afternoon. And then we agreed to go to places like just to the east of Dayton is a small town called Yellow Springs, Ohio,
Mhm.
a very progressive community. And when we got to Yellow Springs, there were plenty of pride flags up. And there were plenty of signals that this is a very accepting and affirming community in small town Ohio. But it's also surrounded by woods. So we went off to Glen Helen Preserve and just walked together and explored the wilderness and had a wonderful time. And I turned to her and said, "Jen, maybe we should start doing this more often. Maybe we should start dating." She had just gotten out of a relationship and she decided, "Yeah, sure, let's try it." Well, I hadn't come out to her yet. I hadn't told her about Dan or anything like that. By the time we got through 6 or 7 dates, by this point it's October of 1989, she and I were convinced that this was going to be something longer lasting than either of us realized.
Mhm.
And we both agreed we liked going to Yellow Springs. We both agreed that we liked going to Young's Jersey Dairy. They have amazing ice cream there. And we went repeatedly to visit Young's, and that becomes important in a little bit. But She had me meet her parents. She had me talk with them. Eventually, I had her meet my parents. And in late October, early November of 1989, Jen came to me and said, Dave, you need to know I'm pregnant. And I thought, oh my, this is what my parents had been hoping for, but they were waiting for us to get married first. This isn't good. We've only been seeing each other for about a month. And so she left me. She left, and she went off back to her ex-boyfriend. They stayed together for about a month and a half, and she decided she didn't want to be with him at all. So she heard me on the radio one night, called the radio station, and we talked for 4 hours, interrupted only by me having to go on air and speak in between songs now and then.
Mm-hmm.
But she decided she wanted to get back together with me. And in January of 1990, I said, okay, we can get back together again, but you need to be aware that I have this friend out in Columbus who's more than just a friend. His name's Dan. And she's like, okay. I'm like, that's it? No further discussion? She's like, no. Do you want to talk about this more? And I'm like, not really. So you want to keep seeing each other? And she said, sure, let's see where this goes. And she has been that open-minded the entire time.
That's really awesome.
That is awesome. And I'm glad that you were able to find somebody like that, because it's hard, especially in the 80s.
Yes. And by 1990, come January of 1990, I told her all this. I said, look, you need to know, I think I might be bisexual, but I'm probably gay. And I'm going through a time of questioning my own sexuality. I want to make sure I'm doing everything right. I want to make sure I'm at least honest with myself. Even if I don't tell my family, even if I don't tell friends, I need to be honest with myself. Well, by March of 1990, I came out to my older brother. And by June of 1990, I was getting ready for graduation from the university. I graduated in July of 90. And Jen was there with me through the entire experience of my last semester of senior year. I got to say, by the time September rolled around, September of 1990, we got married, and our best man was Dan. She agreed that would be appropriate. By October of 1990, I saw Dan again. We went to Columbus to visit him, and he said, Dave, I'm sorry, but I can't do this anymore. And so we haven't talked to each other since October of 90. And well, from 1990 onward to 1994, we continued to understand that there would be times I would want to go out and find other men. And I wanted to make sure she was comfortable with that. And she said, yes. And in 1994, she asked me, well, Dave, I want to know, would you be comfortable if I went out and met up with other women? And I'm like, wait, what are you telling me? And she said, I'm telling you I'm bi. And I'm like, oh, wow. So you're coming out to me and I came out to you. What are we doing together? And we had moments throughout our marriage where we thought, this doesn't make any sense. No one's going to understand this. What do we do? And she said, we stick together. And that's what we've done ever since. From 1994 to the present, we've just stayed living together as a family and continuing to be ourselves when we need to be and continuing to be with each other when we need to be.
That's marriage, actually.
I
mean, and
That's
it's
great.
awesome.
Yes.
And I admire the fact that you guys were both so open with each other and accepting, because, again, I want to go back to the fact that as children, you grow up in these societies that are so stifling and so constrictive, and you don't get a chance to actually find those people that understand you. And it's very hard to find people that understand you. And when you do get to even remotely have that sliver of a hope of that person understanding you, and you get to hold on to them, is even like amazing. Because there's so many people out there that are searching or have given up searching because they figure they'll never find that right person.
hmm Exactly. And I have to say, what was really fascinating is Jen became just as vocal about activism and advocacy after 1994, to the point that in 1996, we decided to take by then our two sons, bundle them into the car, drive to Columbus, Ohio for Pride, and march in the Columbus Parade as part of the Toledo, Ohio contingent.
Hmm.
But the kids didn't want to walk the entire way. So there was this van in the parade that was just ahead of us, and it was from a dry cleaning company. And the gentleman in the back of the van, a young guy, asked, "Hey, do your kids want to sit back here? You can watch them because we're right side by side." They were just feet ahead of us the
Hmm.
entire way, and it was really crowded along the sidewalks. So yeah, they went up and sat in the van. But by the time we got to Fountain Circle, we got sidetracked. The police directed the van off in one direction and the marchers in another direction. And we're like, uh-oh, our kids just left us. Where are they going? They've been kidnapped. This is scary.
Yeah.
So we wandered Fountain Square for had to have been about 45 minutes. And I suddenly hear the voice of God yelling down to me, "Hey, did you lose your kids?" I'm like, "God, is that you?" No, it's me. I'm up here. He starts waving. Our kids were upstairs in this guy's apartment with his partner, his husband, well, who would become his husband. And they're like, "No, your kids are fine. They're up here having ice cream. Come on up." So we went up to the penthouse of this apartment building.
Oh, wow.
There they were, sitting on the couch, eating ice cream, having a good time. Nothing wrong with them. And he's like, "Yeah, we want to go swimming. We've got a pool in the building." So we were dressed for the occasion, and we all went to the pool and had a great time.
Wow.
And Jen and I realized back in 1996 that we had to be open and vocal about what we stand for and what Pride means to us. That was our very first Pride event that we ever attended, by the way.
Awesome. And a very memorable one, too.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. My kids will not let me forget it.
You lost us, Dad. How could you?
So then moving along in the timeline, you were diagnosed with cancer just a couple years later, thyroid cancer.
Right.
How did you kind of, like, what symptoms did you have that led you to that diagnosis and to finding that?
Okay, so I should have been more aware of this. In 2005, 2006, I started gaining weight very rapidly. And I must have pushed from about 215, 220 pounds to right around 300 pounds. I mean, I gained a lot of weight in a very short time. And Jen and I and the kids, and by that point, that now included our daughter,
Mhm.
who came along the way. The three of us were at a family reunion in Montreal in 2007. I got deathly sick to the point I was throwing up. I was very feverish, chilled, achy, and could barely walk. And so I got escorted down from the hotel to a waiting car, and my in-laws, who were with us at the time, asked if I needed to go to a hospital. And I said, "Well, I really don't want to go to a hospital here in Canada. I'd rather be back across the border in the United States." So a member of that side of the family, Jen's side of the family, happened to be a doctor, happened to have his satchel with him with medications in it. He gave me a couple of antibiotics and said, "Take these, get yourself back to the United States, and get seen by your doctor as soon as you possibly can." So we went to Nashua, New Hampshire, and we got checked into our hotel. We were going to visit other relatives that didn't attend the reunion in Nashua. And while we were in the hotel, I passed out on the bed. I mean, literally passed out. And I, not asleep. It was almost as if I was going into a coma.
Right.
And Jen kept trying to shake me and get me moving, and my leg had swollen so much that I needed to be rushed to the hospital. So I got to the hospital, And I was checked for MRSA. I was checked for other illnesses. And ultimately, it came down to that car accident I had back in the early 80s, led to what's called cellulitis in my
Oh,
left leg.
yes.
And that had become septic. So the infection was spreading past my leg up into the rest of my body. And that was what was making me sick. However, along the way, the doctors had ordered additional testing because they thought something might be amiss. And they found that my neck had several swollen lymph nodes in it. And so did my upper chest. And they're like, this isn't normal. You're definitely going to need follow-up care. We're not sure what's causing it. It could be from an infection. It could be from something else. We don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So they sent me back home, and home at the time was up in Erie, Pennsylvania. And I went to a pulmonologist, and he x-rayed me and had other testing done. And he said, I'm not really sure what this is, but you have what appears to be a lump in your neck, and it looks suspicious. So I think our next step is going to be to have it biopsied. And as soon as I heard that word, biopsy, my heart sank. And I'm like, are you suspecting cancer? And he said, I don't know, but we've got to rule it out. Well, I had the testing done, and we did not rule it out. It was thyroid cancer. And so in September of 2008, I had my thyroid removed. And with it, I had several lymph nodes removed, and they all turned out to be a rather rare form of papillary thyroid cancer. And so I thought, well, with my thyroid gone, that should be the end of the illness. And it wasn't, because by October of 2010, after meeting with an endocrinologist, the doctors assured me that your cancer has recurred. And so I had to have additional surgery. But by this point, I was teaching. And by this point, I had really good health insurance.
Mm-hmm.
So he recommended me to a surgeon at the Cleveland Clinic.
Yes.
And I met with the surgeon. He said, we're going to have to perform what's called a radical neck dissection. We're going to have to go into your neck, search from one side to the other, and remove any lymph nodes that are swollen and remove any other tissue that could be damaging. After all of that, he said, yes, you tested positive again. In every lymph node and every piece of tissue we removed, that was all positive for cancer. So it had come back. And I ended up needing radiation. Mm-hmm. And the kind of radiation that thyroid cancer patients get isn't blasted into you. It's a small capsule. It's really cool. The capsule, it glows in the dark. Okay, it's radioactive iodine. You just pop one pill, and then you have to immediately, as quickly as you can, either get home or get moved up into an isolation ward in the hospital and stay there until you're no longer radioactive. So I raced home, confined myself into one room, stayed away from everybody for a full week, and I had to go through this 3 times.
Ew.
So I had quite a bit of radiation. And I haven't had a thyroid cancer recurrence since 2010.
Thank
great.
God.
I've had a couple of scares. I've had a couple of tests done on some swollen lymph nodes, but none of them tested positive for cancer.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. And
Yeah.
I'm sorry that you had to go through that. It's a terrifying disease,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to say that when people say, "Why hasn't science cured cancer?" and I want to say it's because everybody is different. Just because it's the same name doesn't mean that it reacts the exact same way for every single person.
Mm-hmm.
And for that reason, which is a very big reason, that is probably, and I would guess more likely, the reason why we haven't eradicated cancer. People react to radiation differently. People react to chemotherapy differently. And you have to take all of those thoughts and variables into consideration as to why, some people can be cured and some people go into remission and some people it just doesn't unfortunately work.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to, say that it's not because science is bad or wrong. It's just our bodies are complex.
Absolutely. And the complexity didn't end there, you see, because in 2017, I was invited by the Cleveland Clinic to come back for a research study they were conducting on allergies and asthma. And since I have asthma, and since I was not sure what allergies I might have other than I'm allergic to cat dander, I thought, sure, I better get checked and tested. And so during the testing process, two things were discovered. First, I'm allergic to red meat. So beef products were no longer in my diet. And that meant no more steak, no more hamburgers, no more spaghetti sauce with meat in it. And so I had to adapt my appetite. The second thing that was discovered was that I have that common variable immune deficiency. And that is a direct result of having had so much exposure to radiation. Both as a child growing up, we didn't live all that far from the Davis-Besse nuclear power plant. I was in Germany back in 1986, 2 months after Chernobyl. And we were warned before we traveled not to eat too much meat and not to drink the milk while we were in Germany. Well, being a 16, 17-year-old, I'm like, I'm not paying any attention to that.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And so the common variable immune deficiency has made me susceptible to all sorts of illnesses. And the one that's frightened me the most, frankly, was COVID-19.
Yes, it's a terrifying illness. And yeah, there are people that come out of it just fine, asymptomatic whatsoever. And I'm proud and great for you, but don't assume that it's not going to hurt somebody else. And because even the flu, which we've lived with for thousands of years, some people get it. They get the sniffles, they get the runny nose and everything. And then a week later, they're fine. And it doesn't do anything. There are other people who die from the flu. There are other people who end up with POTS because they had the flu. So again, we have to take precautions with COVID-19 that still hasn't gone away.
Right.
And even though we're not in the main pandemic aspect of it, we're still having epidemics of it. And so we still have to be very careful. And we have to, pay attention to the fact that there are a lot of people with asthma or various other autoimmune and non-autoimmune diseases that it could viciously and seriously maim if they're lucky to live through it.
So did you ever get COVID-19?
I did. I've had it once, and it was painful. It lasted about a week. After I was cleared by the doctor, I immediately got vaccinated to prevent it from coming back. And I continue to get vaccinations for COVID-19, monkeypox, and everything else that my doctor recommends.
Right.
I fully believe in the power of vaccination to prevent disease.
Yes, we have to 100% believe in the power of vaccinations, because I'm assuming that you would agree with this. I would rather, and again, this is not in any way, shape proven, but I would rather have an autistic kid because of vaccination and them live than say, I'm not going to have an autistic kid and they die from measles or rubella or COVID or even polio.
Right. A live autistic child is far better than a dead autistic child.
Exactly.
And there is still no convincing connection between autism and vaccinations.
No, there isn't.
Is at best it's correlation, not causation.
Right. Correlation does never equals causation, and we have to understand that. And just because there's people who may act differently after a vaccination does not mean that that's what caused their, whatever illness they may have, neurologically or not. Because also, how do you explain those that have neurodivergence long before we had vaccinations? What, they sniffed Tylenol somehow? I mean... I mean, it's insane to
I mean,
think that.
there are far more dangerous drugs in communities all across Pennsylvania and the United States that are far more lethal than Tylenol,
Right.
Yeah.
and far more lethal than ibuprofen or any of the other medications I keep in the drug cabinet.
Exactly.
Um, and I have to say that there have been points where I've gotten sick, the sniffles, head cold, what have you. And I thought, no, I have got to take it easy. But we have this event. We have a meeting of people. For example, I attend these meetings at a shelter down in Kittanning, Pennsylvania.
Hmm.
And it's part of an active grant that brings together the staff of the agency and shelter that's run for victims of domestic violence, and law enforcement, and children and youth services. But part of the grant required that they bring in a representative from a marginalized community. So they came to Pennsylvania Equality Project and asked us to participate in that work. And again, there have been times I've been sick and didn't feel like going to these meetings, but I've gone anyway because they are that important. And because the information I bring back from those meetings really has helped our organization better understand what's happening in Armstrong County.
And I understand completely not feeling good and still going and showing up. And if you can do that, do it. Whatever it takes. But at the same time, we also have to, argue for the other side where some people just can't.
Yeah.
And we
Right,
want to make
right.
sure that those of us who can are doing it for those that can't. And we have to keep them in mind every time that we are able to go to those types of meetings, to the rallies and the marches. And, we can't forget those people who just can't do it because of ME or something else that they have.
Exactly. And I won't attend meetings if I know I'm contagious,
Yes.
Right.
to the point where it wouldn't take very much for me to spread illness.
No, I
If
understand
if
that.
I do go, I will definitely wear a mask.
And that's commendable, and that's all we ask.
Yep.
Is if you have to go, or you're not sick or anything, you have no symptoms, you should mask, especially if somebody around you is sick, because you don't really want to bring it home.
Right.
And again, with COVID still going around, even if nobody else masks, if you're masked, that helps a lot still.
So moving along in your timeline, let's go to PEP Radio now. So
Now,
after all this, you started the PEP Radio, and
right. Back in November of 2023, I was contacted by Todd Urich from Common Frequency, a nonprofit organization in California, who wanted to help nonprofits across the country, regardless of what type of work they do, to have their own low watt FM radio stations. And he approached me the idea of, we could get you on the air as an FM radio station in your community. And while a 20-watt signal is relatively small compared to the bigger radio stations in your town, you will still be able to cover your entire city of Meadville. And I thought that actually means I will have come full circle. I started out in radio in college, went ahead and did the teaching work that I did from 2005 to 2020. And now that I'm retired from that and moving on, I can go back to the radio work. And I thought, yeah, that is a great idea. So we took them up on it and ran all the engineering tests. We got the FCC license. And I talked with a friend of mine at the time about the possibility of getting the practice, getting the experience needed to go on air round the clock. What will that look like? How can we do this? And he suggested, why don't you start an internet radio station? And I thought, well, that would be close enough. I mean, we would still have to do weather forecasts and news and provide programming of some type. And he said, then do it. So we got connected with the Live 365 folks, and I have to say it has been a fabulous experience with them. They have provided us the tools to be able to put together our schedule, our programming. They cover the royalties on the music that we broadcast on our internet station, and they are helping us get a base of support so that when we move on to become a local FM radio station, uh, we will already have that experience of setting up schedules and playlists and rotations and music and so forth. And I have to say, over the last year of doing the work that I've done, the type of programming we've aired has been incredibly powerful. One of the programs we run is called the On Auschwitz
Mm-hmm.
podcast from the Auschwitz-Birkenau Memorial Museum. When I was teaching, I taught Holocaust history. And I thought anything I can do to continue to spread that message, even though I'm no longer teaching, is valuable. Well,
Yes.
we've been running their episodes, or there are about 50 of them, and we're running out of episodes to air the second time. And rather than starting all over again and running it for a third cycle, I thought, no, let's make room in our Tuesday schedule for the Othering podcast.
Yay!
We can air the Othering podcast. So you're now on PEP Radio every Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday.
And I
And
thank you
so
so much.
Yes.
it's my pleasure. It is absolutely my pleasure, and I'm happy to do it because the messages that you shared from so many of your other guests that you've had on your show have been powerful and meaningful and connect to our listeners, and we can't thank you enough for that.
And that's what we want to do so much, is spread that word and that connection to everyone that we can reach. And by being on PEP Radio, it makes a big difference and allows us to broaden our reach like we need to.
And yeah, I'm crying again. But it's
So can you give yourselves your own plug right now? Can you tell us where else, other than PEP Radio, where else are you guys sharing your messages?
Instagram, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook.
And everywhere you can get a podcast. So Spotify, Apple Music, and all those little oddballs out there. Good Pods is another one I can think of. Everywhere you can find your podcast, and otheringpodcast.com.
Yes, our own website, which I built. So y'all better be going to there because I built that. But it means the world to me to hear what you said, because as a teacher myself, being able to reach that one student and have them have that aha moment and understand the world through their eyes, and not be jaded or hurt, and be able to express themselves how they're supposed to be expressing themselves, based on their own standards, is so important to me, and it frees me. And so having, and I want to say that once you're a teacher, you're always a teacher. So we always have to be sharing our knowledge and being able to have other people share their knowledge and their triumphs and their, thoughts or even their failures. I think changes the narrative of all of us being worthless human beings. And you can't look at a person in the eye and see that they're disgusting or anything like that when they're standing in front of you. It's easy to say that when you're behind a computer. Right. But when you actually hear the stories of what people have gone through to stay surviving the next day, it changes you. I think it changes your DNA, and, not scientifically, of course, but it changes how you feel and think about other people. And when I had a student that came out to me and told me that they were also HIV positive, I hugged them. And they said that I was the first person that ever hugged them with knowing that they had HIV. And I continued to hug them. And if I can do that for more people, then I feel like that's what I'm here for. And I want to do that. So, virtual hugs. because I understand that some people just can't do a hug because they hurt. So I'll virtually hug you, but that's
Sure.
my whole drive. And it took so long for me to figure that out, but and it's kind of full circle for us too, because like the bug started when we were on internet radio a long time ago, and now we're back to it, and this is what I love doing.
And I hope you continue to do this for a long time to come, because again, the number of people who are part of the disabled community and part of the LGBTQ community, and they overlap,
Yes.
that number is not a small number. And for those that are just coming out who happen to be disabled, hearing this message of hope and hearing these messages of you might not be able to overcome what's disabling you, but you can overcome the fear and stress that you're going through with coming out of the closet, or whatever challenges may lie ahead. There are people out there that will support you.
Yes.
Right.
And if you need a sister, a mother, a friend, and I am there, because even though I wasn't ostracized for coming out, but I understand how it feels to be completely and utterly othered and thought of as less than, and I never want anybody else to feel that way.
And us and the PEP Radio and his whole organization are all people that are willing to be there for you and supporting everyone else. So we're all together. It's a community.
Yes.
And that's what we're building here too.
And it's important to have community. We got so far detached. Like, we used to have block parties, and we would have, community gatherings for birthdays or things like that when I was growing up. And then we stopped. And it became more and more mine, 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 mine. And only mine, never yours. I can't share type of thing. And we need to get back to the thought process of we all have to lean on each other in order to be successful. Nobody is successful in a vacuum. Somebody had to bother and talk to and, work with somebody else in order to get where they are. And this thought process of mine, 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 I needs to go away. Because, for instance, so you're a CEO. Who does the other work for you? If, you got workers with you, they do some of the work. They're doing, the advertising or the creation of the products and things like that. You didn't get there alone. The road that you drive on, somebody built that so that you could actually make it to your office. Again, you didn't make that alone. The building, you didn't make that.
No.
Somebody used their hands and their tools to build that for you. So in every scenario, you didn't make those alone. So we need to come back to that thought of we all are in this together. We all are. And if you don't even like us, tough shit. We're still there for you, and we're still going to fight for your right to be an ass and our rights to be.
Exactly. And in the spirit of fighting the good fight, coming up a week from today, in Harrisburg, I'm planning on attending yet another rally. So I know we just got through the No Kings rally 2.0, but there's going to be a coalition of organizations that will be at the Capitol steps in Harrisburg. So for the first time since 2013, when we held our marriage equality rally that we talked about earlier, we are getting back together again, but this time to talk about healthcare issues.
Yes.
Right.
So this is for the trans and non-binary communities that are going through gender affirming care, for the HIV community whose funding at the federal level is in danger of being cut. How can the state step up and replace that funding, or help people with HIV not lose the care that they currently have?
Right.
And fighting because healthcare is a right. LGBTQ folk need equal protection under the law and equal rights with everyone else. So on October 26th at 1 o'clock, there's going to be a march, and that's followed at 2 by a rally at the state capitol. And I know other organizations within the coalition are spreading the word fairly rapidly. Again, I mentioned Pennsylvania Youth Congress earlier. Jason, that I met back in 2013, has taken that organization to being one of the largest youth-based organizations in Pennsylvania focused on LGBTQ rights, and they're doing an amazing job. They're out in Harrisburg already. I want to get out there and meet up with them.
And
That's
thank
excellent.
you. Thank
Yeah,
you
thank
so
you.
much for that, because again, we need all of that. And I think that with the No Kings protest, that was a beautiful thing, but we need to, address our demands now. We need to demand equal housing, because nobody should be homeless. We have the money, we have the means. Nobody should be homeless. We need health care. Veterans shouldn't have to beg, especially veterans should never have to beg for anything. And, taking care of LGBTQ, the elderly, HIV positive people benefits all of us. When you take away that health care, and you take away the rights of clean air and clean water and good soil, you're just creating another mass disabling event. And if you don't want more disabled people, you can't keep creating these damn mass disabling events like genocide and, destroying our EPA system. And we need to demand for those better. Those main things. I'm sure there's more. There's way more. And of course, equal rights across the board for everybody. Man, woman, children, non-binary, everybody should be covered, because we didn't learn, the right to pursue happiness and liberty and justice and not give it to them.
Agreed. And I am convinced that the work that I do with Pennsylvania Equality Project, with PEP Radio, with the Housing Coalition of Western Pennsylvania, which I'm on the board of governors of, through that organization, I've learned so much about how county agencies acquire their funding from HUD, and the restrictions that are forthcoming this year on housing are quite threatening and quite scary. Among them, no gender ideology is allowed when considering grant proposals, and that is threatening the trans and non-binary communities.
Yeah.
And I've firmly said I will not support anything that threatens the housing capability or the life of members of the trans and non-binary communities. I simply will not stand for that.
No, I won't either. And I appreciate you doing that, because they keep saying they want to make it fair. Well, to make it fair, you have to make it equitable. It would be nice if we didn't have to have race or gender included in all the laws. It would be nice that, things could just be given as, based on merit, instead of, based on, well, what race you are or what gender you are. But that's not how our world has been built. It has strictly been built to oppress AFABs, females, and everybody else that is not a, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant male, or, in the case right now, supposedly Christian. And it's kind of hard to say fair when, again, we're excluding those words. And all I can think of was when you start to exclude words that are a lot of times just words. Now you're telling me that I no longer matter. And that, to me, is stupid, ridiculous, and just angers me even more and makes me want to fight more.
I agree.
If you want it based on merit, then make it based on actual merit. Stop, appointing morons that don't even know what a shoelace is, can't even do a freaking pull-up correctly, and actually base it on you're the right person for the job. Yes.
We do need to wrap it up here.
Yes.
Before we go, I wanted to give you a chance to let people know where to find Pennsylvania Equality Project, PEP Radio, etc., and anything else that you want to put out there.
Sure. So Pennsylvania Equality Project is accessible at paequality.com. The radio station has a PEP Radio page on there. The radio station itself is also available through the Live 365 app, the Roku and Alexa.
Mm-hmm.
So if you tell your Alexa, hey Alexa, play PEP Radio, our station will come on.
That is so awesome.
That is pretty cool.
And beyond that, again, we have the March and Rally coming up on October 26th in Harrisburg, 1:00. There are local pride organizations all across Pennsylvania that are working on transportation. So I would check in with one of them, especially if you're in Eastern Pennsylvania, because the number of organizations working on this to get transportation is a little bit larger than it is out here in the West.
Okay.
And they probably have buses or vans or something already lined up.
Okay.
So you can reach out to our page to get more information for that.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for joining us. Thank you for all that you've done and all your advocacy.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I appreciate the compliments, and I look forward to hearing this episode.
Yes, it'll be awesome.
All right.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
If you've made it this far, thank you so much for listening. Please leave a rating for us wherever you listen. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok.
Othering Podcast is brought to you by Loudcore Productions in conjunction with your support. Your host, Mike and Dory Morris, graphics by Joshua Morris, and join us next week on the Othering Podcast.